The excavation site on Kepler 452 bits looked like a wound in the planet's ancient skin. Massive excavation rigs rose against the deep purple sky, their mechanical arms piercing layers of sediment that had accumulated over millions of years. Jessica Morgan stood at the edge of the primary dig site, her environmental suit a stark white against the rust-colored landscape of the alien world. 3 solar cycles had passed since the initial discovery, and the multinational research team had grown increasingly frustrated. What had begun as a promising archaeological expedition was rapidly becoming a monument to scientific disappointment. The planet's surface told a story of complex civilization, fragmented structures, remnant energy signatures, but maddeningly little concrete evidence of the civilization that had once thrived here. "Another negative scan," grumbled Dr. Heinrich Müller, the German xenorchaeologist, as he reviewed the latest data projection. His holographic display flickered with countless layers of geological and technological analysis, each scan more frustrating than the last. Beside him, researchers from the Zorn Confederacy clicked and chittered in their native communication dialect, their insectoid forms a stark contrast to the human researchers. Jessica knew something was different about this site. While others saw nothing but layers of rock and scattered technological debris, she perceived patterns, subtle interconnections that seemed to whisper of something more profound. Her background in quantum archaeology wasn't just an academic pursuit. It was a calling that had brought her to the furthest reaches of human exploration. The current scanning team represented a unique collaboration. Humans worked alongside representatives from 3 alien civilizations: the insectoid Zorn Confederacy, the crystalline Arachnid Collective, and the energy-based Concordat of Luminous Minds. Each brought their own technological approaches, each convinced their method was superior. "The probability of significant discovery is mathematically negligible," announced Krelvax, the lead Zorn researcher, his multiple eyes scanning the holographic data with rapid, independent movements. "We have conducted 12,642 comprehensive scans. The likelihood of finding anything of value is less than 0.003%. Jessica suppressed a smile. Scientists always spoke in probabilities, but discovery had never followed mathematical predictions. Her fingers traced the edge of her personal scanning device, a custom-built tool that incorporated quantum resonance techniques developed by her research team back on Earth. The dig site covered approximately 3 square kilometers of what appeared to be an ancient technological complex. Massive structures rose from the planet's surface, their materials a blend of crystalline compounds and metallic alloys that defied current understanding. Each structure seemed to be deliberately positioned, forming a complex geometric pattern visible only from high-altitude scans. A sudden tremor passed through the ground. Most of the research team dismissed it. Geological instability was common on Kepler 452 bits, but Jessica felt something different. The tremor carried a rhythm, almost like a pulse. "Hold the next scan," she called out, her voice cutting through the ambient noise of the research camp. Dr. Müller looked up, irritation clear in his expression. "We have a scheduled procedure, Jessica. We can't simply—" "Wait," she interrupted, her hand hovering over a specific section of the excavation grid. "Something's different here." The alien researchers exchanged glances. A human interrupting established protocol was both amusing and slightly offensive to their structured mindsets. Krelvax's mandibles clicked in what passed for alien laughter among the Zorn. Jessica's scanning device began to pulse. Not an electronic pulse, but something more organic, a rhythmic vibration that seemed to resonate with the very ground beneath their feet. The holographic displays flickered, showing quantum entanglement patterns that shouldn't exist, couldn't exist according to current scientific understanding. Something was waiting to be discovered, something that had remained hidden, not by accident, but by deliberate design. And Jessica Morgan was about to uncover it. The research base hummed with a low, persistent energy that had nothing to do with its mechanical systems. Jessica Morgan's personal laboratory stood apart from the main research complex, a deliberate choice that reflected her unconventional approach to xenorchaeology. Quantum entanglement displays covered every available surface, creating a three-dimensional map of the artifact's molecular structure. Each projection told a different story, layers of information that seemed to contradict and complement each other simultaneously. Standard scanning protocols had failed spectacularly, revealing nothing more than a complex but seemingly inert object. But Jessica saw something else. Her fingers moved across holographic interfaces, running algorithms that had been developed in the most advanced research centers on Earth. Computational models that blended artificial intelligence with human intuition, designed to find patterns where traditional scientific methods saw only noise. Dr. Morgan, called Dr. Heinrich Muller, entering the lab with a look of professional disapproval. The Oversight Committee wants a preliminary report. They're growing impatient with your unorthodox methods. She didn't look up. A series of quantum probability matrices danced across her primary display, revealing subtle resonance patterns that defied conventional physics. The object isn't just a technological artifact, Jessica muttered, more to herself than to Mueller. It's a communication system. No, more than that. It's a network. Mueller sighed. He was old school, a researcher who believed in methodical, linear investigation. The kind of scientist who trusted established protocols more than intuitive leaps. We've scanned the object from every possible angle. It's remarkable engineering, certainly, but ultimately inert. A soft chime interrupted him. One of Jessica's quantum algorithms had just discovered something extraordinary. The artifact's molecular structure wasn't static. It was dynamic, changing in ways that suggested an impossible level of complexity. Microstructural shifts occurred at quantum scales, too small for traditional scanning equipment to detect. But Jessica's custom-built systems caught every nuanced movement. Outside the lab, the alien research team continued their traditional investigation. The Zorn Confederacy researchers used their advanced sensory clusters, scanning with technologies that had mapped thousands of star systems. The Arachnid Collective brought energy mapping technologies that could penetrate most material structures. Yet they saw nothing unusual. Jessica knew the difference. Humans approach scientific investigation differently. Where other species saw limitations, humans saw possibilities. Her computer system, a custom-built quantum processing network, began to reveal something remarkable. The artifact wasn't just a technological object. It was a dormant communication hub, designed to activate under specific quantum resonance conditions. These quantum signatures, she said quietly, zooming into a molecular-level projection, they're not random. They're a language. Mueller rolled his eyes. A language. It's a piece of technology, Jessica. Not some mystical. Not a spoken language, she interrupted. A quantum communication protocol. Look. The holographic display shifted, revealing intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with an almost organic rhythm. Each molecular shift carried information, complex, multidimensional data that traditional scanning methods would interpret as meaningless noise. The Zorn researchers would see this as a technical anomaly. The Arachnid Collective would classify it as an interesting but ultimately irrelevant quantum fluctuation. But Jessica saw a message waiting to be understood. Her background was unique. Not just a traditional archaeologist, she was part of a new breed of researchers who understood that technology and communication were fundamentally interconnected. Her doctoral work had focused on quantum communication theories that most of her colleagues had dismissed as theoretical speculation. Now, those theories were coming to life. The artifact seemed to respond to her presence. Quantum fluctuations increased when she was near, creating complex information patterns that suggested something more than random molecular movement. "It's waiting," Jessica whispered, "waiting for someone who can understand its true nature." Outside, the alien research team continued their methodical investigation, completely unaware that the most significant discovery was happening just meters away from their sophisticated scanning equipment. Jessica Morgan was about to prove that human intuition was the most powerful scientific instrument in the universe. The research base fell silent during the long planetary night. Kepler 452 bits' twin moons cast an ethereal lavender light across the desolate landscape, creating shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own. In her isolated laboratory, Jessica Morgan worked with a focus that bordered on obsession. Quantum entanglement models covered her workspace, a complex web of holographic projections that told a story far more intricate than any of her colleagues could comprehend. The artifact sat before her, a crystalline structure that appeared dormant to every other researcher, but to Jessica, it was a living puzzle waiting to be solved. Her fingers moved with a musician's precision, tracing invisible patterns across the artifact's surface. Each touch was calculated, yet intuitive. Years of research had taught her that scientific discovery was as much an art as it was a precise methodology. A tremor passed through her hand, not a physical shake, but something deeper, a resonance that seemed to originate from somewhere between her neurons and the artifact's molecular structure. Dr. Heinrich Müller would have called it imagination. The Zorn researchers would have dismissed it as human emotional interference, but Jessica knew better. The first indication came as a subtle change in the artifact's quantum signature. Most scanning equipment would have missed it, a microscopic shift so minute that it would be lost in background noise. But Jessica's custom-built quantum resonance interface caught every nuanced movement. Something was responding. Her research had always pushed boundaries. While other archaeologists studied dead civilizations through static remains, Jessica explored the living language of technology. Each artifact was a communication waiting to be understood, a message encoded in quantum frequencies. The crystalline structure began to hum. Initially, the sound was below human hearing, a vibration more felt than heard. Jessica's specialized equipment first detected it, a frequency that didn't match any known technological signature in the Galactic database. "Come on," she whispered, her breath catching in her throat. "Show me what you're trying to say." The humming intensified, not loudly, but with a complexity that suggested purpose. Each vibration carried layers of information, quantum packets of data that seemed to dance between states of existence. Outside her laboratory, the research base continued its routine night cycle. Automated systems monitored environmental conditions. Alien researchers from the Zorn Confederacy and Arachnid Collective rested in their specialized quarters, their multifaceted sensory systems in low-power mode. They would miss everything. Jessica's quantum interface began to translate the artifact's language, not through traditional decryption methods, but through a complex algorithm that treated technological communication as a living, breathing form of expression. Patterns emerge. Not random noise, but a deliberate communication protocol that seemed to respond to her specific quantum resonance. The artifact was alive in a way that transcended traditional understanding of technology. A holographic projection burst to life, filling the laboratory with a three-dimensional network of quantum information. It wasn't a visual representation in the traditional sense, but a complex mathematical language that seemed to breathe with intelligence. The base's primary systems remained unaffected. No alarms triggered. No emergency protocols initiated. The activation was happening on a quantum level so sophisticated that it existed between the spaces of conventional detection. Jessica understood now. This wasn't just a communication device. It was a test. Her hands moved with increasing confidence, following an intuitive sequence that emerged from somewhere between scientific calculation and pure human creativity. Each touch was a word in a language older than any known civilization. The artifact responded. A quantum pulse erupted, so powerful that it momentarily distorted the fabric of space-time around her laboratory. For a fraction of a second, Jessica existed in multiple states of possibility. The researcher, the discoverer, the bridge between known and unknown. And then silence. But it was a different kind of silence. Pregnant with potential, filled with the promise of something extraordinary about to unfold. Jessica Morgan had just triggered a communication sequence that would change everything humanity understood about its place in the universe. Chaos erupted the moment the first alarm triggered. The research base's standard communication systems imploded, quantum frequencies cascading through networks designed to be impenetrable. Holographic displays across the facility flickered and died, replaced by a complex matrix of information that defied every known communication protocol. Dr. Heinrich Müller burst into Jessica Morgan's laboratory, his face a canvas of professional panic. "What have you done?" he demanded, watching as the base's primary systems began to disintegrate under an invisible technological assault. Jessica stood transfixed, her eyes reflecting a cascade of quantum data that seemed to breathe with living intelligence. The artifact had transformed from an inert object to a communication hub more complex than anything humanity or its alien allies had ever encountered. Krelvax, the lead Zorn researcher, arrived seconds later. His multifaceted eyes moved in independent patterns, scanning the chaos with a mixture of professional horror and scientific fascination. The insectoid aliens' communication clusters began to emit a high-pitched distress signal, a sound that cut through the facility's increasingly unstable environment. "Containment protocols are ineffective," Krelvax announced, his translation device struggling to maintain coherence. The quantum data stream was overwhelming even the most advanced alien communication technologies. The artifact was no longer just an object. It had become a living network, a communication matrix that expanded exponentially with each passing moment. Quantum frequencies burst through shielded communication channels, rewriting technological paradigms faster than any system could adapt. Jessica's custom quantum interface remained the only stable point of contact. While every other scanning system collapsed, her equipment continued to translate the incoming data stream. She realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. A communication protocol so advanced it could simultaneously destroy and reconstruct technological networks. "It's not attacking," she said quietly, her voice cutting through the growing panic. "It's communicating." Mueller scoffed. "Communicating? It's destroying every communication system in the facility." But Jessica saw the truth. The data stream wasn't destruction, it was translation. The artifact was rewriting communication protocols, creating a new language that bridged technological understanding across species and systems. The Zorn researchers attempted to implement their standard emergency containment procedures. Quantum dampening fields erupted around the artifact, designed to isolate and neutralize any technological anomaly. They dissolved instantly, absorbed into the expanding communication matrix. Alien communication specialists from 3 different civilizations watched in horror as their most advanced technologies became obsolete in seconds. "This is impossible," muttered Dr. Sarah Chen, the secondary human research lead, her voice a mixture of terror and scientific excitement. The facility's environmental systems began to shift. Holographic displays that had shown standard research data now projected complex 3-dimensional communication matrices. The walls themselves seemed to pulse with quantum information, transforming the research base into a living communication node. Krelvax's communication clusters went silent, the first time the Zorn researcher had been rendered speechless in his entire career. The quantum data stream was beyond any technological comprehension, a communication protocol that existed in multiple states of possibility simultaneously. Jessica understood what was happening before anyone else. This wasn't an attack. It was an invitation. The artifact was testing them, challenging the technological understanding of every species present. It was searching for something, a specific type of consciousness capable of understanding its true nature. And humanity, with its unique blend of technological innovation and intuitive thinking, was at the center of this cosmic communication event. Quantum frequencies continued to cascade through the research base. Standard communication systems became impossible. Traditional technological barriers dissolved. The very fabric of their understanding of communication was being rewritten in real time. "We need to stop this," Mueller insisted, reaching for emergency shutdown protocols. Jessica caught his hand. "No," she said firmly. "We need to listen." As if in response to her words, the quantum data stream shifted. The chaotic information matrix began to coalesce, forming patterns that hinted at something extraordinary waiting to be understood. The protocol had shattered, and something magnificent was about to emerge. The quantum pulse hit Earth's communication networks like a silent tsunami. At the Global Space Coordination Center in Geneva, Director Michael Rodriguez watched in stunned silence as every advanced monitoring system began to transform. Quantum communication arrays that had cost billions to develop suddenly came alive with a complexity that defied all existing technological understanding. "Status report," he demanded, though he knew no one in the room could provide a coherent explanation. Dr. Emily Chen, the center's lead quantum communication specialist, stood transfixed before a wall of holographic displays. Each screen showed a different perspective of the same impossible phenomenon, a communication matrix that seemed to rewrite the fundamental rules of technological interaction. "It's not an invasion," she whispered, her hands moving across quantum interface panels. "It's a conversation." Across the planet, research centers and military installations experienced similar events. The quantum pulse didn't destroy systems. It transformed them. Sophisticated communication networks began to reconfigure themselves, creating a global web of interconnectivity that transcended traditional technological boundaries. At the Integrated Space Command in Colorado, Colonel Marcus Williams watched as classified communication channels became transparent conduits of unprecedented information. Quantum encryption systems that had been considered unbreakable dissolved, replaced by a communication protocol that seemed to understand the very essence of information transfer. "We're receiving something," a junior communications officer announced, her voice a mixture of terror and excitement. The information wasn't a traditional message. It was a multi-dimensional communication matrix that existed simultaneously across multiple states of possibility. Mathematical models, astronomical data, quantum resonance patterns, all converged into a single breathtaking narrative. A story was being told, but not through words, through pure information. Military analysts, quantum physicists, and space exploration experts found themselves united in a moment of collective revelation. The communication event centered around the archaeological site on Kepler 452 bits, with Jessica Morgan at its epicenter. Quantum communication arrays in orbital research stations began to resonate with the emerging information network. Satellites designed for deep space observation transformed into living communication nodes, each one adding another layer to the expanding quantum matrix. "This is beyond anything we've ever seen," Dr. Chen muttered, her fingers flying across quantum interface panels. The global response was immediate and unprecedented. Traditional geopolitical boundaries dissolved as nations realized they were witnessing something far more significant than any terrestrial conflict. Military installations, research centers, and communication networks began to synchronize with an efficiency that seemed almost organic. At the United Nations emergency session, representatives from every major world power watched in collective awe as the quantum communication matrix continued to expand. This was more than a technological event. It was a fundamental restructuring of human understanding. "We're being invited," Director Rodriguez said quietly, understanding something that few others could comprehend. Not attacked. Invited. The quantum pulse carried more than just information. It carried potential. A challenge. A test that humanity was uniquely positioned to understand. Quantum communication specialists worked frantically, trying to decode the expanding information network. But traditional decryption methods proved useless. This was a language that existed beyond traditional communication paradigms. Military strategists noted something extraordinary. The communication matrix wasn't targeting specific systems. It was creating a global network of unprecedented connectivity. Classified networks became transparent. Isolated research facilities found themselves interconnected. Humanity was being prepared for something. At the Kepler 452 bits research base, Jessica Morgan represented the epicenter of this cosmic communication event. Her custom quantum interface remained the only consistent point of contact with the artifact's expanding communication network. The pulse continued to spread. Each moment revealed more of the extraordinary message waiting to be understood. Earth was awakening to a reality far more complex than anyone had ever imagined, and something magnificent was about to emerge. The first ships materialized like ghosts against the inky blackness of space. They were nothing like traditional spacecraft, not the rigid, monolithic designs of previous human exploration, nor the biomechanical constructs of alien civilizations. These were living networks of technological potential, vessels that existed in a state of constant adaptation. Admiral Caroline Martinez watched from the primary command center as the fleet took shape. Each ship was a marvel of distributed intelligence, modular components that could reconfigure themselves in milliseconds, adaptive hulls that responded to quantum communication patterns with an almost organic fluidity. The global manufacturing networks had transformed overnight. Factories across continents worked with a synchronicity that defied traditional production models. Automated systems, research facilities, and military-industrial complexes became a single unified organism, creating something extraordinary. Quantum resonance at optimal levels, announced Commander David Chen, his hands moving across holographic interface panels. Adaptive configuration protocols are online. The ships were more than machines. They were collective intelligences, each vessel a node in a living, breathing network that could think, adapt, and respond faster than any traditional military system. Traditional concepts of ship design had been completely abandoned. Propulsion systems merged quantum entanglement with gravitational manipulation. Defensive capabilities weren't about hardened shields, but about dynamic information displacement. These ships could literally phase through potential threat vectors, existing in multiple states of possibility simultaneously. We're receiving continuous updates from the Kepler 452 bits communication matrix, a junior communications officer reported. The quantum data stream continued to provide intricate details about something approaching, a threat more complex than any human or alien civilization had ever encountered. Admiral Martinez understood the stakes. This wasn't just a military mobilization. It was humanity's response to a cosmic challenge. The ships didn't launch from traditional space facilities. They emerged from global manufacturing networks, assembling themselves in real time. Each vessel was a collaborative creation, incorporating research from quantum physicists, aerospace engineers, artificial intelligence specialists, and military strategists. International boundaries dissolved in the face of this unprecedented challenge. The United States worked seamlessly with Chinese research teams. European quantum computing centers collaborated with Russian aerospace engineers. For the first time in human history, the entire species moved with a single unified purpose. Configuration complete, Commander Chen announced. The fleet looked like nothing in recorded galactic history. Sleek, dynamic vessels that seemed to shimmer and shift, their hulls a complex matrix of adaptive materials. Some sections appeared crystalline, others looked like living metal that breathed and transformed. Alien observation systems, those still functioning after the quantum communication event, watched in stunned silence. The Zorn Confederacy communication networks, still struggling to comprehend the quantum matrix, registered the human fleet's emergence as an impossible event. These weren't just ships. They were a technological ecosystem, a living response to a challenge that transcended traditional understanding of warfare and exploration. Adaptive configuration at 97% reported a holographic interface. Each ship contained multiple layers of intelligence. Quantum computing cores worked in harmony with human intuition, creating a technological symphony that defied traditional artificial intelligence models. The vessels could predict, adapt, and respond to potential scenarios faster than any single human mind could comprehend. Admiral Martinez felt it. This was more than a military mobilization. This was humanity's true potential unleashed. The quantum communication matrix from Kepler 452 bits continued to provide intricate details. A threat was approaching, something that existed beyond traditional dimensional understanding, and humanity was preparing to meet it with everything they had. "All systems are go," she said quietly. The first wave of ships began to move. not with the linear progression of traditional space travel, but with a fluid, almost living motion. They phased between potential vectors, existing in multiple space-time coordinates simultaneously. Something magnificent was about to begin, and humanity would face it together. The first glimpse of the approaching threat came as a distortion in the fabric of space itself. At the Global Space Coordination Center, holographic displays erupted with impossible geometries. Dr. Emily Chen watched in horror as quantum sensors began to map something that defied conventional understanding of matter and energy. "It's not a fleet," she whispered. "It's a consumption system." The artifact from Kepler 452 bits had been more than a communication device. It was a warning beacon, a last desperate message from a civilization that had discovered something fundamental about the nature of cosmic existence. The threat emerged from the dark spaces between dimensions, not a traditional invasion force, but a systemic process of absolute consumption. Dark matter entities that didn't just destroy star systems, they unmade them, breaking down the fundamental structures of reality itself. Admiral Caroline Martinez studied the incoming data with a mix of scientific fascination and profound dread. The threat moved like a cancer through the fabric of space-time, consuming entire galactic sectors in moments that were simultaneously instantaneous and eternal. Quantum communication networks revealed the terrifying truth. This was a civilization, if it could be called that existed beyond traditional understanding. It didn't conquer. It consumed. Entire star systems became raw materials, fundamental atomic structures broken down and repurposed in a process more akin to metabolism than warfare. Previous civilizations never understood. Jessica Morgan's voice came through the communication matrix, her research from Kepler 452 bits providing critical insights. They saw it as a threat, but it's actually a fundamental cosmic process. The Alien Research Consortium that had previously dismissed human theories now listened with desperate attention. The Zorn Confederacy, the Arachnid Collective, the Crystalline Concordat, all realized they were facing something beyond their comprehension. Krelvax, the lead Zorn researcher, transmitted a message that carried the weight of collective desperation. Our historical records show 14 advanced civilizations that encountered this phenomenon. 0 survived. But humanity saw something different. Where other civilizations saw an insurmountable threat, humans saw a complex system to be understood, challenged, potentially even redirected. The quantum communication matrix from the artifact suggested this wasn't a force to be fought, but a process to be comprehended. The approaching consumption system moved with terrifying efficiency. Entire star clusters simply disappeared, their fundamental atomic structures broken down and repurposed. Traditional defensive technologies were less than useless. They were irrelevant. "We're not going to fight it," Admiral Martinez announced, her voice cutting through the mounting panic. "We're going to communicate with it." The human fleet began to reconfigure, not as a traditional military formation, but as a living quantum network. Each ship became a potential communication node, capable of interfacing with the cosmic consumption process at a fundamental level. Jessica Morgan's research from Kepler 452 bits provided the key. The artifact had been more than a warning. It was a translation matrix, a way to understand a cosmic process that existed beyond traditional dimensional understanding. Quantum physicists worked alongside military strategists, breaking down the traditional barriers between scientific disciplines. This wasn't a problem to be solved through force, but through understanding. The alien civilizations watched in stunned silence as humanity prepared an approach that defied every known military and scientific protocol. "They're going to try to communicate," Krelvax transmitted, his communication clusters vibrating with a mixture of hope and terror. "With something that has consumed entire civilizations." The consumption system approached, a massive distortion that devoured space itself. Conventional sensors couldn't even map its full extent. It moved like a living process, breaking down the fundamental structures of reality with a method that was simultaneously mechanical and organic. Humanity's fleet transformed. No longer traditional spacecraft, They became quantum communication arrays, living networks designed to interface with a cosmic process that existed beyond traditional understanding. "We're ready," Admiral Martinez said quietly. The fate of multiple civilizations hung in the balance, and humanity was about to show the universe exactly what made them unique. The moment of contact defied every known law of physics. Human vessels transformed into living quantum communication networks, their adaptive hulls shimmering with potential. Admiral Caroline Martinez watched from the Central Command Nexus as humanity's fleet became something more than a military formation, a collective consciousness prepared to interface with the cosmic consumption system. "Quantum resonance stabilizing," Commander David Chen announced, his voice steady despite the impossibility of their mission. The consumption system paused. For the first time in its recorded existence, the cosmic process that had devoured entire civilizations hesitated. Humanity's approach was nothing like the defensive mechanisms of previous species. They weren't attempting to fight or resist. They were attempting to communicate. Jessica Morgan's research from Kepler 452 bits provided the critical translation matrix. The artifact had been more than a warning. It was a key, a method of understanding a cosmic process that existed beyond traditional dimensional understanding. Quantum communication arrays spread across the fleet, creating a living network that pulsed with collective intelligence. Each ship became a node of possibility, adapting in real time to the most complex communication challenge in recorded history. "We're receiving a response," a junior communications officer breathed. The response wasn't visual. It wasn't auditory. It was a fundamental restructuring of informational exchange. The consumption system began to slow, its process of breaking down reality momentarily interrupted by humanity's unique approach. Alien observation systems across multiple civilizations watched in stunned silence. The Zorn Confederacy, the Arachnid Collective, the Crystalline Concordat, all witnessed something unprecedented. Where previous civilizations had seen a threat to be fought, humanity saw a complex system to be understood. "It's not destruction." Jessica Morgan's voice came through the communication matrix. "It's a process of cosmic renewal, a method of redistributing fundamental resources across dimensional boundaries." The fleet's quantum communication arrays began to pulse with a rhythm that was simultaneously mathematical and intuitive. Human creativity merged with quantum computational processes, creating a communication method that was uniquely adaptive. Admiral Martinez understood something profound. This wasn't a battle. This was a conversation. The consumption system began to change, not retreat, not be destroyed, but transform. The massive cosmic process that had devoured entire star systems started to respond to humanity's unique approach of understanding rather than resistance. "We're translating," Commander Chen reported, his voice a mixture of scientific excitement and profound wonder. "It's responding to our communication matrix." Krelvax, the lead Zorn researcher, transmitted a message of collective amazement. 14 civilizations encountered this phenomenon. 14 civilizations were consumed, and humanity is communicating with it. The human fleet continued to adapt, each vessel becoming a living communication node. They weren't fighting the cosmic process. They were understanding it, translating its fundamental nature, revealing a potential purpose beyond simple destruction. Quantum physicists, mathematicians, military strategists all worked in a unified approach that transcended traditional disciplinary boundaries. This was humanity's true strength, the ability to see beyond established paradigms, to approach the unknown with curiosity instead of fear. The consumption system began to reveal its true nature, not a destructive force, but a cosmic recycling mechanism, a method of redistributing fundamental resources across dimensional boundaries. Previous civilizations had seen it as a threat. Humanity saw it as a process to be understood. "We're establishing a communication protocol," Admiral Martinez announced. The massive cosmic process that had devoured entire star systems began to slow, not because it was being fought, but because it was being understood. Alien civilizations watched in stunned silence as humanity did what no species had ever accomplished. They weren't conquering the unknown. They were conversing with it. The final moments of contact were beyond traditional description. A fundamental restructuring of cosmic understanding occurred. The consumption system, this massive process of dimensional redistribution, began to interact with humanity in a way that suggested something more than simple communication. It was learning. From humanity. "We did it," Jessica Morgan whispered, watching from the research base on Kepler 452 bits. The universe had found its bridge builders, and humanity had just changed everything.